Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. This is a talk between myself and my cycling coach Andi Bajc, who is located in Slovenia, and he has been my coach since November of 2021. He is the current DS of a continental cycling team in Slovenia, and he is a former full-time cycling racer, bike racer for a continental team. You can hear more about him in the movie. Enjoy.
Yeah,
Have
go.
you ga- have you gained any weight since you stopped training?
Uh, yes, I did.
How much?
Probably around I don't, I want to say 8 kilos. Eight.
Wow, that's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, now I already shaved a little bit, but yeah, I had because when I finished I had 64 and now I have 72.
Are you doing any exercise?
I would like to do it more, but now I started running again.
Running's the best. You can
Yeah, I
run
mean,
in
I
like
mean, I mean, running is the easiest thing to do. Yeah.
it is. It is. It's
I
amazing.
when you have no time, you put your you put your shoes on and you just go.
Yeah. Yeah. So, uh, are you still taking clients?
Yeah, I don't have a lot at the moment, but yeah, I'm taking clients. Yeah, yeah.
How much is your base level charge
My
per month?
base is 180.
180.
Yeah.
What's
No,
your max?
no, sorry, my base is that's in euros. Yeah, but it's anyway same, pretty much same. So I would say 180, 190. Oh, I have only two levels. It's your level, and then the second one is the basic level, which is
And
it's a bit less of structure. It's not the structure is the same, just it's a lot less analyzing and less, just
communicating.
yeah.
What are you still a DS of a team there?
Yes, I just signed the contract now. So
It's a
uh,
UCI team.
yes, it's a continental team. So it's
So how does that work? You have UCI like Pro World Tour, which is the very top, and then what's the level below that called?
So normally there's a UCI World Tour. This is the only 20, I think it's 20 teams,
Uh-huh.
which then can compete in all World Tour races. Under that, there's a pro continental level,
Uh-huh.
uh, where you can find, I don't know, say Lotto Destiny and Total Energy, which was Peter Sagan's team, Uno X, some teams like that, which is a pro continental level.
Uh-huh.
And then there's I think there's only one American team that's how did it say it? Human powered health,
Yeah, which was Rally before.
which was rarely before. Yeah, that's the only US team, and then under that there's the continental level where you can then have there's a lot, probably around 100 conti teams, maybe even more in the world.
So is yours the Pro Conti team?
No, it's a continental team. So it's like basically it's like the all Conti American teams. We have we have good guys that raced also in in pro continental level. You
Uh-huh.
see, but yeah, we have to start somewhere, and continental level is something that it's a good springboard if you want to do something then extra in the future. Just because you have to do everything. It's the aspect of work is yeah, you are pretty much
Full time.
not just full time, but when you're in the at in the races, you have to help the mechanic, you have to help the riders, you have to help the master, you have to The spectrum
Oh
of
yeah,
work
yeah.
is much broader than when you are in a more organized team, when you have let's say 40 team members for 8 riders.
What level did you race at the highest?
The highest what I raced was a continental level, which is the
Okay.
same level. I had a pre-contract for pro conti team, but then I had a crash with a lady hit me from the side with the car, and
Hmm.
then I lost 2 years, and then it took me quite a not physically, but it took me mentally quite a lot of time to get back. Yeah, and then I was maybe too old at that time to really go somewhere higher.
Wow.
Yeah, I know it's but it is what it is. I still made good living from it, and when you can live your dream, and this is the dream. Okay, maybe I didn't make as much money as I could, but money in the end, especially in the last couple of years, didn't matter, because when you realize for what you are doing this sport, then and you can make living and you can support your family from it, I think that's more than enough.
Well, to that point, in the United in at that same level, you're saying it's the continental level.
Yeah,
It's just, to me, that's the same in USA, like a Legion and Project Echelon and these NCL teams and stuff like that.
yeah.
And
I
they
think
they
Legion is I think Legion
they
is a
don't.
continental team. Yeah.
Yeah, well, a lot of them, the majority of the guys who race at that level, they don't make enough to support anyone, even themselves. Hardly.
So I was quite lucky with the teams, because I think in when I started cycling in 2008, when I signed my first contract, we had all the riders that we had in the team could live from the money we got.
Hmm.
uh, and then of course during time, things change. Sometimes there is a team that only pays more money to the good guys, and then less money to the, let's say, students
Right.
or first or second or third year U23 riders. But I
Yeah.
was always in the team that I had everything covered. I had the travel expenses covered. I had the team
That's so
car
nice.
sometimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
So nice.
it was much easier. But one thing, one aspect that's much easier maybe in Europe is that the traveling is not so expensive than in the US, where you have to fly to
Yeah.
pretty much everywhere, and when you have to fly the whole team, yeah, I think the cost really then gets off exponentially. And especially when if you're living in a in a state like California, and I think maybe then it's really hard to be a pro cyclist there. Yeah.
Why do you think you weren't able to make it to the pro continental level?
I think
You said you had the crash, but if you were really going to make it, you would have made it earlier.
um, so
Like,
this crash happened when I was um, third year U23.
oh, so this was your prime time to go to that level, so you were
Yeah,
ready.
yeah, because I second year U23 I was good, and I was I could mix it up in the in the worlds, and in European championships I could mix it up with the best.
Wow, that's
Okay,
amazing.
yeah, but then maybe sometimes I was not mentally really prepared, because when you're that young, it's sometimes you don't have the same aspect of life that you have when you're older, and maybe that
Yeah.
was also one of the reasons that maybe I was not aggressive enough. I was not sometimes lacking a bit of this just oomph.
Did you have
uh,
any mentors back then?
I think in Europe it's always good taken care of about mentors. We always have so like our director sportif was always someone that was a pro rider before. So
Yeah.
when I started, we always had our national coach was a pro rider doing multiple Tour de France, and my DS from the start was André Houtman, which is also now the director sportif of Tadej Pogacar. So it's much easier.
Yeah, he's okay, you know.
Yeah, it's much easier to actually work with someone that already has the experience and already has done that in the past, and he came to the same problems like you are coming at that point, because
Yeah,
pretty much all the riders, it's kind of funny that all the riders, they tend to make the same mistakes,
right,
and one of the mistakes is you don't listen enough. But
right.
but yeah, you learn that from the from the going on, from the just from experience. But one of the things maybe at that time was also that I think that doping related was still more involved than in the times now, because 2008 was still
Was heavy.
2010. Yeah, it was still heavy on these kind of things. So yeah, it
So,
was.
so for those Euro U23 championships, all those years you were doing that, U23, were those guys doping?
I can, in cycling you can always say something about only about yourself. I you can never
Unless
say,
somebody else talks about it
well, yeah, but when
or
you're
gets caught.
yeah, when you get caught, that someone did doping, but you can always
Right.
only speak about that. But when you're saying, okay, you know there are rumors, and but I don't tend to go there, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't help me. It wouldn't help me now. But yeah, the
No.
doping was still involved, and there things that you see at that time. And yeah,
Did
you know
anybody try and get you to dope?
there were a couple of older riders advising me to, but I always said no, because yeah, it wouldn't make sense for me, at least from my perspective, to actually try it. Because yeah, but there are things that when you train with people that, or uh, when you train with people that they've done it, you can see the progress that they make. It's exponential. you know you don't get tired, and that is
Mm.
maybe you can train more and more, and you don't get tired. And there is, in Europe there was always, okay, we are part of Central Europe. We race with the East Bloc a lot.
Hmm.
And I remember a Bulgarian guy that, an old guy. Maybe he was, when I was 23, 24, he was around 37, and he started the season with, I would say, 90 kilos.
Big
And
guy.
yeah, no, but when his races come in July and June, he had 66 kilos.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Yeah, you
Wow.
you couldn't believe the transformation that he did, just from using some, I would say, supplements, but we all
Yeah.
knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And also, when I was racing in Turkey, there, I think there was a guy that was later also caught. I think there was, he won he raced with me, and we all know he was doing it, and we were beating them, and still, even if they used EPO. And
Yeah.
then after 2 years, when I went to Austria, he won the Tour of Turkey, and of course he got caught, I think, after. So, but yeah, I think doping is I think now it's much easier and much better, for especially for the young guys, because I think it's the sport is way more cleaner than in my time.
So if it's way more cleaner, how are they able to produce so many watts per kilo now? Like, I feel like they're producing the same or more than the Armstrong era.
I think they are,
I mean,
but
how
one
is
of the,
that physically possible?
well, you would also, you can now we can see in marathon also that,
That's true.
yeah, yeah, and in all other sports you can see, okay, maybe now in 100 meters of running there was no record for a long time, But you can see
Yeah.
in all sports that, even in soccer, in American football, in basketball, people are jumping higher, running
Yeah.
faster. The game is evolving, and I
Yeah.
think it's one thing. One aspect is that I got my first power meter when I in 2014.
Oh
Before
wow.
you, yeah, which is
I got my
late.
I got my first one in 2005.
Yeah, which it
Yeah.
was late because but no team provided us, and for a rider it was
It's
expensive.
expensive. Yeah.
Yeah, and you raced on heart rate, and now when you have a coach, you can see pretty much everything. You can influence his sleep, you can influence his food, you can influence, and also you can see that people are not actually living at home anymore. They all live
Right.
in altitude. There
That's a
are
good point. I forgot that. Like you hear so much about the altitude camps, and we know that the Armstrong era as well. They went to altitude some, but not like they do now. So basically, to get whereas Armstrong was using EPO to boost the hematocrit, now they're just living at altitude and boosting it that way. So it's sort of like somewhat the similar.
Yeah, but it's also what is interesting is that some guys are so the altitude on the majority of people actually is helping to produce more EPO and red blood cells, and
Right.
helps you. But there are also some cyclists that they are, I would say, intolerant to altitude. But when they are doing altitude, it doesn't really do nothing for them. And
Weird.
one of the cases of that is Matej Mohoric. So he, when others go to Tour de France, before Tour de France, they go to altitude camps. He
Yeah.
stays at home. He stays at home and he trains at home because
And
the
he just won
altitude.
the gravel worlds, no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but the altitude doesn't affect his body.
I'm a,
Yeah, as much as the others, but you can see that Jumbo is pretty much they were in altitude, or even Ineos or UAE, they were in altitude, from December then till the first races, and then they go back to altitude again. Some use the only the hotels in Spain where they have the altitude rooms,
uh-huh.
because then you can train in a normal.
And then sleep high.
Yeah, and then sleep high, train low, sleep high. This is kind of different aspects, but
Wow. There's hotels with the chambers inside?
yeah, yeah, where people can
Wow.
use it. Yeah, we also
That's
have one in
awesome.
Slovenia. Yeah, but this is in it's getting really popular also now, because there are hotels that are made just for cyclists. Everything is made for cyclists,
Hmm.
and a lot of things that were not done in the past are now done.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's why people are
Yeah.
going faster. They always have the same mattress wherever they go. You know,
They bring their own mattress.
yeah. So the whole team has their own mattresses.
How do
They're
you
all
know so yeah, yeah.
they all have their own pillows. They all have, when they come to the room, the whole room is sanitized so no one gets sick. Everyone has a food truck, and I'm not saying that they have a food truck in a race, let's say Tour de France, where they have the big truck, but they also do it in the small races. So let's say, we were racing against Team Ineos in Tour of Austria, and they had 40 people for 8 riders in a two point
You the
in a
the team
2.1 race.
the team
Yeah,
that you DS?
yeah, and we had no. This was Ineos, and we had six. We had 8 people, and which was for 8 riders, and they had 40 guys there. You know,
So
just to
the team that you direct is racing in races against Ineos?
yeah.
Wow. That's challenging.
I mean, the biggest challenge for a sport director is that um, each individual has to start somewhere. So probably the majority of guys that started in Ineos, they started in an amateur and
Sure.
on a continental level, and then they moved up from the result. But the biggest problem is to persuade the riders that they also have only two legs like you have, and to challenge them to get in the right position when they need to
Right.
be, because in the races like this, especially when you're in continental level, they tend to push you out. They say, "Oh,
Right.
go back. This is not your place."
Yeah.
And yeah, but when you persuade the riders that is their place and that's a race for everyone is the same, then it's much easier for a rider to make a result, because in this kind of races there's always a split moment when you have to be, or a majority of the races there's a split moment, let's say a climb, and
Yep.
uh, if you're not in a right position at that time, you're not going to come over, because
No.
let's face it, if you're not behind Simon Yates on the climb, you don't go faster than Simon Yates on the climb. And I think that's the biggest challenge of being a sport director, to get people to believe that they can do it.
Yeah, well, I think that is true of amateurs as well, but the drawback for us is we don't have a sports director to provide that external influence. It's like we have to think that way ourselves, and it's super important. If you think that you belong in that break with guys that are on teams stronger than you, and you know that they're stronger than you, but you feel like you should be in that break. That's the only way you're going to get in that break. If you feel like
Yeah,
you're not good enough, if you feel like you're not good enough to be there, you're not going to try anything to get yourself there.
I
So
mean, this is one of the things I like about you, because you are willing to try it,
till
and
you
and
blow
risk.
up.
Yeah, and risk it, because
Yeah.
sometimes when you're not risk it, no risk, no fun. But
Right.
it's also that, if you are, especially in a races, in amateur level, there's a lot of times a break that goes to the finish line. Not every time,
Right.
but there's a major, there's a the
Majority
field.
goes. Yeah.
Yeah, the field is not so even,
Right.
so there are guys that are excelling, and there are guys that are just happy to be on the start, and uh, so that's the difference. And if you miss the break, then even if it's not dangerous, sometimes it comes to the finish line, because the cohesion of the group is something totally different,
Yeah,
like
for
happened in
sure.
yeah, like happened in the US Crete Nationals. I think that's you have to be in a pro race. You can be less aware sometimes. Okay, there are crucial moments, but sometimes other teams help you solve the situation, where
Right.
you are here by yourself, and if you miss the situation, yeah, it's a done deal. No one will help you, or
Right.
it's really hard to actually then to make a group work on the back. And I think amateur racing from that side is much harder, because there is no
Yeah,
way, there's no point, there is no knowing when the right brake will go. Yeah,
that's
you
true.
have to smell it in the wind.
So when you got hit by that car, what did it do to you?
So I broke both of my wrists, so I have to
Uh-huh.
have the surgery. I had to have surgery, and then I was out for 5 months, which actually, then I came in the end of the season. I was physically, after the crash, I was physically in a much better state, so I could produce really good numbers. But my mental side was completely off, just because I didn't have the confidence, in riding in the bunch. You were always scared. Okay, if I crash again, what will happen? Because I still had you have all the things inside your wrist still, and then
You you had
yeah,
metal in your wrist.
yeah,
Oh yeah, you'd be totally screwed if you crash on it again.
yeah. And that's why you always have something. And when you're racing let's say a U23 Flanders, when there's a lot of cobbles, there's a lot of dangerous situation. There's always something happening on the road, and when your head is not in the right place, it's actually really hard to get it right. And I needed, yeah, maybe 2 years to really to really get the confidence back. It was not the aspect of mental. I mean, of physical strength, just more mentally. It was kind of challenging,
Why do
but
you
it
think
was.
you pro-
Yeah, go.
no, why do you think you produce more power after you came back?
Um, I after me, I came. I so after the world, when I was second year to 23, I went soon after to New Zealand. And I was, racing the local scene in New Zealand. But after the crash, like the physical aspect of the crash is that you after that you rest.
Right.
There's total,
Nothing.
yeah, nothing. But and it got me more hungry again. I think I was good before, but
Yeah.
it got me hungry again. And I was training 3 times per day, and yeah,
On the bike every time.
I went running in the morning, empty
Yeah.
stomach. Then I did the bike, and then I went to gym, pretty much each day. Uh,
Wow.
yeah, and from physical aspect, that was really good. Like if we've done a ramp test, and I finished at 490 watts on 62 kilos.
That's at the end of the ramp. It's a 12-minute
Yeah,
ramp.
yeah. So it was, but it was so what my let's say,
62 kilos.
yeah. So
Yeah.
my FTP would be 390 at that time. But it was the mental aspect. I was doing mistakes in the race, and that little things cost you a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, sometimes shit happens. But it was good. I still had, everything else. It was good. I think still I had a couple of chances even after this, that I could have gone to pro to higher level. But yeah, it is what it is at the moment. Yeah. But
It's interesting.
yeah.
So how do you know so much about what's going on with the World Tour riders? You have like connections there or something?
Yeah, well, it's when you're a cyclist or a pro cyclist, it's like a it's like a dental convention. Everyone knows,
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I know what you mean.
yeah. Everyone knows what's the latest in that, and what's latest in this. There are tendency from the team that they are hiding a lot of things now, or putting a lot of misinformation, even to the
To
local, to
make
the,
people do the wrong thing.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, wow. So it's like a false propaganda.
Yeah, I would say that they are preaching something, but then doing something completely else.
I can
Uh,
see that.
yeah, but this is kind of funny because of for amateur riders, when you're really following a team, and they're doing completely something different, just to mess with the other teams.
Right.
But but an amateur rider doesn't know that.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, when you're racing together, when you are training with somebody, and you can see always what they're doing in training, and you speak with them during training rides. And then you can speak with other people that are involved in the teams, let's say mechanics or masters. You always get kind of insights of what they are doing, and it's much easier.
Has that changed the way that you coach people at all? Like, has
Yes.
that affected your coaching? How's it affected your coaching?
I mean, it's affected my coaching in things that, okay, the basics of cycling is, I wouldn't say that they are same, but there are similarities.
Right?
But when they are, when it affected a lot of things that, especially from first from the equipment side. I think that's the biggest factor that was done in the couple of last couple of years, when I think the equipment side is much there's a more focus on the equipment than before.
Yeah.
And you also experience yourself how much a wind tunnel or a suit or something, a new pair of wheels or a new bike actually helps you. The second
Right.
thing is that is the nutrition part that you always, you know there's a big factor of also this. And yeah, when you see other people doing things that or you see training right, or you see someone doing a special interval that was given to him by a coach that's also training the Richie Port, and
Right.
and speaking also with somebody that's doing a thing that was maybe beneficial for him and then not beneficial for him, and also comparing these kind of things with other riders and with other coaches that are involved. I think that aspects really, yeah, it changes. I think I would say that I wouldn't I would say that my coaching is different from season to season because you learn something new each year. There are similarities, of course, yeah, but the aspect of how you think about it is when you have more knowledge, you can actually do things accordingly. But it's also much easier for, let's say, for an amateur riders now to train, especially because you can see what pro riders are doing, especially for the guys that are not hiding their data.
Right.
uh, you can if you look at his Strava profile, you can actually see what kind of intervals he's doing.
That's true.
Yeah,
That I don't ever really do that. Like I do it sometimes for the guys I race against, and what someone actually does and the results that they produce, that's the real true story of what works and what doesn't. And it's
yeah,
like, and it's a reflection of their genetics. For example, like I can race a crit against a guy who trains 10 hours a week, and he's a much more formidable competitor than the guy who's training 25 hours a week. But partly a part of that is the genetics as well. But
I mean, yeah, I mean that's always, the genetics will always affect you. But what is funny, that maybe training 10 hours per week is maybe better for a crit racing than
right,
doing 25, because when you're doing a lot of endurance stuff, because let's face it, in 25 hours, yeah, the majority of, or 90% of the 25 hours is still doing endurance, right? And
right,
for doing crit racing, you actually, it's much, maybe I think in my opinion, it's much better, it's better to do shorter things, more
yeah,
explosive, and do maybe a little more gym, and that's it. And this is, it's kind of what track riders are doing, and it's actually
right,
much better for racing crits. But the hardest thing is to actually, especially for someone like you who is balancing all three kind of disciplines, and we are trying to be good at all three of them.
yeah,
It's always a juggling factor that we have to incorporate in the training, that's when you will be doing a lot of more endurance,
one thing
uh
suffers. Yeah,
one thing suffers, yeah.
yeah. So like details and concrete things that you're taking away from like the world tour guys, like you and I had talked before about ketones. You what's your comments on ketones?
I think ketones in pro cycling is still I wouldn't say gray area, but there are teams that are using it, and we all know that Jumbo is using it, and they are admitting it of using it, and I think also Sudal Quickstep are using it, and there are teams that are against that, kind of, are against ketones, and I think that they say that the studies are not still, that this is
Being
a gray area.
conclusive,
Yeah,
right?
this is
So
something.
I wonder if Yumbo and Sudal have actually done their own studies and not telling anyone the results.
Uh,
I mean, they have the
I,
resources to have their own lab, an own science lab.
I think Yambo is, from scientific perspective, way above everyone rest, and that's what is also showing in the results. They I think they've done the research on ketones, and I think ketones are not also for all the riders. That are it's sense again, some individual responds better to ketones, and some individual response worse. But also when ketones came in the peloton, there were only a couple of teams that really knew how to use them. So, and in a lot of teams, they understood the basics, but they were not quite sure when what. But
Yeah,
sometimes for the rider's sake, it's much better to give them something, so they think they are on the same level, on the pair level with
right,
someone. Yeah. And I think now this is much more evolved, and I think the ketones kind of went away from the mainstream media or the mainstream, but I think it's still involved. And I think Jumbo is a team that surely has done the research, and
right.
why would you share it? This is like Formula
Yeah,
One racing. You
yeah,
you have the research, and why would you share it? Because
exactly.
also when there was in my area, in my period, when we did, let's say, a team time trial, we always said, our coach said to us, when you swing off, go as close to the line back, back in
Right.
the formation. But actually, when Jumbo have done this the first time, and actually done it in the wind tunnel, and with all kind of measurements, they actually discovered that this is the worst position to be going back. Yeah? You have to swing way off
Yeah,
and then come back, just because that
weird.
you're not disturbing the airflow of the formation.
Yeah, collectively, it's slower to be in the turbulence than all the way away from it.
Yeah, and that's why things like that are a difference maker. And I think Jumbo is someone that has this really under control. But
Yeah,
we will see. I think one of the main issues that we will see now is that Primoz Roglic has taken his coach now to Bora. So that there is also it's not only that Primoz went to Bora, but also his the coach's knowledge and the knowledge of Primoz went to Bora, and now how Bora will incorporate that into
right.
their system.
That's a good
So
point.
yeah, so it's there was Wout van Aert had the same coach, and this is now, I would say, maybe the best, or one of the best coaches in Jumbo. And how will this affect when someone is going away with all this knowledge to another team?
Was Primoz's coach Van Aert's coach as well?
Yes.
Ooh,
Yeah,
wow.
I mean, uh, this is then when things always will get, especially in professional sports, in some way they'll get in equilibrium. There's always someone that has done. And it's also, let's say, in NBA, when a coach or an assistant coach goes to another team and actually
Right.
makes things function. And this is why in pro sports there's always someone that maybe the effect of the coach would be bigger than the effect of Primoz Roglic riding into the France.
What's your advice about the use of caffeine?
Um, I think caffeine is a special topic. Uh, you know, I think first, if you want to use caffeine, you have to know how to use it, and especially a lot of people use it a lot of during normal life when you wake up,
Right. That's right.
and then they drink five or six coffees per day, and
Yeah.
then all the caffeine effect actually body gets used to it. So in the race, the caffeine level is then the caffeine booster, it's not uh, you don't feel the effect like you would feel it without drinking coffee. I've done it in the past. I've tried. I didn't use it in the really hot periods, just because it's because of cramps. But I was always more of a, for me it was better, and this is my personal experience, that I've used it not as a huge booster, let's say 400 milligrams, but I used it like a slow kind of intake. So it was maybe 100, so the amount was
More
same.
metered.
Yeah, so but was more meter, yeah. But I always had a booster that was in the pocket. When you knew when you knew when to take it. And then yeah, but it also one of the things that caffeine is maybe better is uh, when it's really cold. So it actually, for me, it was better to use it before, because the race is totally different, and caffeine actually really helped me with that.
Uh-huh.
So to get pumping a little bit sooner, and then normally I
Like a
would use it. Yeah, not a warm up, but after 50, 60 Ks,
yeah.
when there's a lot of when you're not cold, and you can race more aggressively, and then you can, in cold weather, you can use it more, like you can use more caffeine. But one
Uh-huh.
thing is about the caffeine aspect, that you also have to think about next day. You cannot, especially in the stage races, all these caffeine effects, they show up on the next day. So that's why I said you have to be careful. This is not something, okay, for a 1 day race it's not a problem, but for a stage race you have to be careful with an intake. But anyway,
So what do
now,
you what
yeah,
do you
go.
mean the affects the next day? What are you talking about?
I mean, so you are, caffeine is also working on the body, not just, it gives you, I would say, produces more, not, I wouldn't say produce more power, but it gives you that extra kick. But that extra
Hmm.
kick, it's artificially made.
Right.
So, and these artificially made kicks, they affect the body on the next day when the recovery is not the same, because, you know, you took a 400 milligrams of caffeine, so the recovery is not so good.
Yeah.
Maybe someone has a hard time sleeping,
Right.
because a lot of pro riders, especially maybe a couple of years back, they had this was kind of a really big problem in pro peloton, that was so heavy caffeine during the race, so they couldn't sleep, so they take sleeping pills, and
Right.
then heavy caffeine, sleeping pills,
Bad
heavy caffeine.
cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, and then that cycle was, it was really really big problem in the peloton, more that it was actually set in the media. But that's why
That
I
make
said that it affects your body. That kind of extra punches, they when you're producing, it's like putting nitro to your engine, to your car's engine. When you rev it up more, then sometimes things break.
I
And
I agree. I agree with that. And it's like, after your race, you want to bring your body down into like a rest and digest state to relax, completely relax as much as you possibly can. And all that caffeine, which you typically do towards the end of the race, it's going to be in your system for the rest of the day.
yeah,
And like for example, when I've had afternoon criteriums, uh, and I've used caffeine, like you said, it's difficult to fall asleep. And I have I have a prescription of Xanax. I forget the medical chemical word for Xanax, the drug that's in Xanax. Maybe it's different in Europe. Do they call it Xanax in Europe?
yeah. I think everyone knows in the world, I think,
Yeah,
by the
yeah,
name.
yeah. So it's been a really good thing for me to have, but I can see how, like, if you're doing a 2 week long race, you don't want to be taking Xanax every night just to fall asleep, and then you smash the caffeine the next day. It's like really stressful for your body.
Yeah, so the problem is that you are experience two things. So first is the body arousement of, anyway, your body after the race.
It's
Let's say,
jacked.
yeah, it's
You're
aroused, and
jacked.
yeah.
Yeah.
and if you put that, extra gas on it, it's really hard for the body to actually get back to the state of relaxation, because
Yeah, like
you cannot really have 400 milligrams of caffeine or 200 milligrams, and think that this is always maybe slow release. It's never a release that it's an instant. It's not adrenaline release.
yeah, like after some of these crits, I would be awake till like 1, 2 o'clock in the morning. You can't get up the next day and race. All you can do is just lay around.
Yeah, and then that's why they took, that's why you take a pill to
Right.
actually get you to sleep. But the problem with sleeping pills is that it actually affects how you sleep.
Exactly.
Yeah, because you don't move enough. It's again an artificial thing that the body is doing, so the body is not moving enough, and it's, your brain is confused. uh, and that's why maybe this cycle is kind of complicated to get out of it. And especially, I know it was hard for me, when sometimes when you come to a race and you raced at uh, 7 p.m. at night, and then you have a race next day, it's really hard for body to
Yeah.
actually, to get in a state that is not aroused. One thing that really maybe worked for me was doing some little bit of yoga and kind of breathing exercises.
Right.
So it's the same concept of doing exercises that, when people are in stress or have a panic attack, then you can kind of breathe it out. So this is like, trying to get the body in a state that's actually, not so aroused.
Hmm.
But it was hard for me, yeah. And I remember, I get the feeling that this is kind of, caffeine is a two-edged sword.
Yeah, for sure. Do
Yeah.
you guys race criteriums in Europe?
Yes.
Okay.
We
Are
had,
they
so the normally is that we have a short race on maybe Friday or Saturday before the main event on Sunday. That's, mostly what we are doing. But yes, we've raced, I don't know, maybe 20 to 25 crits per race per year,
wow.
depending on the year, but but crits was some, it's an hour event, so it's again something, completely different. And it was sometimes really funny for us racing against, even even in, let's say, especially in Germany, they have a really high crit scene, and when you race
Uh-huh.
against them, when they're really, specialized for that, it's much easier. It's much harder to race against them because, their punches and their sprints are much better. So
Right.
you have to use all the tactics, that can actually beat them. But yeah, but I've really enjoyed the racing crits. But
Yeah.
towards the end of the career, oh, I tend to skip or do an easy crit before an important race, because, yeah, like you said, that affects the body next day, because it's a high intensity workout, and when you
Hmm.
have to be ready the next day, yeah, you can feel that.
Hmm. How do you want to stop the call with the
Oh,
time?
I mean, it's up to you. We can go for 14 minutes, 15 minutes longer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What kind of things would you like to talk about?
Uh, I mean, I would like to talk about your season. How
Okay.
did you? I would like to, see how did you see the season? What was done good? What was done bad? Just
I Yeah.
aspects of the racing. How was the racing? How is the racing different from doing pro races in your eyes? And how do you prepare for the races like that?
What do you mean? How
Because
was the races difference pro wise?
no, like when you've done the races, let's say 2008,
Uh-huh.
yeah, to
Yeah.
races now, and also when you've done races let's say uh, pro riders.
Hmm.
or to a strictly masters race?
Okay. So for me, a good season is a season without interruptions. And if you can train and race all year without major interruptions, I think that regardless somewhat of the results, like it's really special to do because it's so easy to have like crashes or sicknesses or things that cause you just from being able to be consistent. And if it, just being consistent and being in control of your program and not having external factors control you is huge. And when I was like in my 20s racing and trying to be the best I could be, I had a lot of interruptions. And a lot of those interruptions were like I would say the majority of the interruptions were self-inflicted from like psychological anxiety from me, like not even they weren't cycling related. They were more like relationship related with girls and dating and stuff like that that would really like sidetrack my whole program because say I'm just dating the wrong girl, and it would just totally screw me mentally to
Yeah,
where I just could not function. And now that I'm married and I have a family and stuff, like that side of my life is so stable and just like normal, which is great. And so that is never really gonna set me off track, you know? And so I've been actually surprised in some ways that I've been able to come back to a lot of the wattages that I was able to do when I was like say 27 or 28 and 42 now. Um, I think that's pretty remarkable, really, considering I was training super hard. I think that you and I train, we don't train me as hard. Like I look back at some of the workouts I used to do. I was being coached by a guy who was a continental rider for Bissell. Bissell was a pro team back in the around 2008,
yeah,
2006 and all this stuff. And he was going and racing in Europe and Asia and stuff like that. And he was having me do like 2 by 45 minutes at sweet spot. Or no, wait, he would be like, do 45 minutes at sweet spot before you go and do your interval workout.
yeah, which is a
Like
lot, Yeah,
it was so much load when I go back and look at it. And then to think like I was doing all that, plus I had a lot of periods where I wasn't sleeping and I had a lot of anxiety and insomnia. And it's like I never really reached my full genetic potential because of all those other factors. So now I think like under your program and having when I have adequate rest, I feel like I'm I'm at my genetic potential several times throughout the year, given how much I'm able to do. And like when I go on a trip and I don't have to work and I don't have really anything to deal with except ride and just lay around, you can really feel
yeah.
like
You can
another
feel the bump. Yeah,
you feel the bump and you go to another level, and it's unfortunate that you can't stay at that. I feel like that bump level, like if I could go back in time and my lifestyle was able to do it, that bump would probably have put me like in a level that could compete for these continental races. Like I was just doing everything I could to hang on, honestly. Like yeah, I was
yeah,
having to give everything I could. I remember when Tyler Hamilton came back and Floyd Landis had both gotten busted, and they came back to the U.S. and tried to race the U.S. circuit. And I remember being in races with them, and like it was really cool to be in the peloton with them, knowing that they had won the Tour de France, and me just being a lower level. But being in those pro races like that, like I got dropped from a lot of races. I can remember. I couldn't hang on. And I feel like if I had been able to play on that bumped level, that would have put me where I needed to be. And now, like now I like doing some bigger crits with more pros because it really boosts my confidence for the other stuff that I do. It's like it's like doing nothing, you know?
Yeah,
And
it's also I think something that when you're racing races like this, you actually you gain a different level of speed.
you do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
totally. Like
yeah,
I can't agree with that more. Like it's a great way to prepare for other stuff that you have that you're trying to win. And like you said, like being in a peloton where the best, there's a lot of the best US pro teams there. The racing is in some ways it's almost easier because it's more smooth and it's just
yeah.
super fast, but it's more smooth and
Everything
it's more.
makes everything is making a kind of sense what things teams are doing. Where in an amateur race there is a lot of it's much harder to read the race as it's you're never quite sure what will happen if something
Yeah,
happens. But I've watched I've watched a couple of your races, and when the races that you won, when you've done the
the
where
one
there
on
was
TV.
yeah, there was multiple crit races that you won. There was a small bump in the criterium.
Oh, the Tulsa Tough.
Yeah, that's also tough.
Yeah,
And there was that. I think in that criterium you could actually see that you have things under control. It
yeah,
was still it was still a couple of dodgy moments where I would say, oh, that was not maybe not the best thing, but
yeah,
you've had things under control. And when you've came in the right place under the climb, I saw, okay, that's he has this, he knows what he's
yeah,
doing.
yeah,
And I think sometimes what you've said now is there's an interesting point that if I think maybe your mental preparation or your mental state that you have now, especially with stability with the family, we have a job, and things are in the life are not so hectic.
right.
Just with that mindset, putting you in the same race in 2008 would actually, I
I would
think,
have done
make,
better now.
yeah, you would make a
Yeah,
big difference. Yeah. And
yeah,
it
for
was same
sure.
for me. It was same for me when when you are when you are older, it's much easier to actually, when you have this stability in your life, uh things move slower than when you are 18, 19, 20, 25, when all over the place and thinking you have
Right.
everything under control.
Yeah,
And
it's almost like I feel like if I was still single, I wouldn't even be racing. I wouldn't be racing at all.
yeah, I think
You know?
stability was also brought, my family really brought a lot of stability. And okay, it's hard with kids and everything else, it's the recovery is different, the
Oh yeah.
aspect of life is totally different, because when you come home you cannot really rest.
No.
And this goes also for pro riders, not just it's for an amateur riders, it's even harder, because when people go to work and then you go to do your training, and then you come back and you still have someone, still kids you have to take care of. We
Yeah.
have, and I admire amateur riders because of that, because there's a great level of commitment that has to be done, and a great level of commitment also towards the family, and family towards what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And back to like how this year went, I think that I'm really satisfied with a lot of the results that I got. I think that doing the having done that Cat 1 Amateur National Championship, that's a really strong race. There's
Yeah,
guys who there's guys who race like almost a full uh pro calendar that do that race, and to be able to be on the podium there on both the crit and the road race, I think that was probably one of my most proud moments. And
I mean,
I think,
from my aspect or from my side, I think that was great because I mean this was overreaching, or but
yeah,
I wouldn't say overreaching because I know that you've done everything what it should be done, and on the other hand, I know you've deserved to be there. There was nothing given to you.
no, no, for sure. I earned every second of it. And even in hindsight, you can think about things that you could do that would have gotten you even an even better result. But it's like, I think when it comes to the time trial, it's really hard for me to overcome um, not having a higher FTP. Like I don't know what my 20-watt max would be if I just went out and tried to do a full 20, but for a time trial, it's really hard to overcome with aerodynamics and setup somebody who can hold 400.
Yeah,
It's just a different beast. And
yeah,
I have a lot of natural talent for the TT, probably because of from my running background and pacing and just being able to get on the limit and hold it there. But that can only take you so far. Like at some point, you got to produce the wattage. I was listening to Fabian Cancellara talk last week on a YouTube talking about his peak. I want to say he was saying like when he was at the Olympics for the time trial, he did like 460 for an hour.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know what
I
I'm
mean,
saying?
yeah, yeah. I think that especially when you do climbs, there's the watt per kilo effect, but when you're doing
Right.
something flat, just the overall wattage, yeah, it gives you an edge. And even if you look the watts now from Filippo Ganna, this is you know I know he's big, but the amount of watts that they're producing, it's humongous.
Yeah.
And
Like the guy who the guy who beat me this year and last year at Masters National Time Trial, he's an excellent strong rider, and I think he averaged like 390 for 40, it was like 42 minutes or so.
yeah, which is
And
it's a lot of watts.
that is truly beyond my genetic potential. Like it doesn't matter what you and I do in terms of workouts. I'm not going to do 490 for 42 minutes. Like just go ahead and shoot me and kill me. It's not going to
Yeah,
happen.
yeah. I mean, there are aspects of the time trial that you can, when you're doing specific training, that you can actually improve quite a lot. But
Yeah,
then you have to really, maybe neglect a little bit, other things.
right.
Uh, but yeah, 390 watts. We cannot do that. It's maybe I wouldn't say it's impossible because you cannot really say this, but it will be really hard to reach, and
Yeah,
it would also affect all the other things that we are doing.
yeah,
But still considering is that we've came a long way from from last year in terms of producing more watts, especially when
right, for
we're
sure.
considering, yeah. And I think there's another step that that we can we can do in the future, just because my opinion is that, okay, you are 42, you will be each year a little bit older,
Right.
but this was now your only your second year coming back, so I think
Yeah,
you're still
11 years off.
yeah, so
11
I
years
think,
with no training.
yeah, so I think still you didn't reach the full potential
I
of,
think so too. I think so too. And a lot of it has to do with additional years of racing.
yeah,
Racing experience. Even though you've done it for a long time and for many years, like you still get better at racing.
yeah. I think that there's a, or they say that you are getting better from 1 to 3% each year you train at the same level,
Ah,
if you're doing things correctly. It's not always the case, but especially when in your case, I would say that we are still in a zone that we can we can tap higher.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm glad that, I think that can help. Just a little bit of conversation can help other masters athletes um, do better and get better coaching and stuff. Anything else you want to talk about?
I have to go now because it's 10 p.m. here. But
Let's close.
I would
Let's
like, yeah,
so
I would
yeah,
like
we
to
can.
have another call in maybe next week.
Yeah, let's sign off on one thing. What about alcohol?
I like it.
Yeah, me too. We'll catch up on the alcohol next time.
Yeah. Okay. It was
Okay,
really
good.
great chat, and I hope we can do it next week. And I hope this becomes something regular because I think we have a lot of topics that we can
Oh,
really,
way, for sure.
yeah. Maybe we can, discuss a little bit of alcohol next week and what we like, and then we go from there on.
Okay. Good night, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Have a nice day.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.